From the dojo to the octagon, this is Budocast, your source for the latest in martial arts news, culture, and competition. From breaking fight results to evolving techniques, we cover it all. Let's get into it.
Yeah, it is. It's a really fascinating time to be analyzing this sport because just when you think you've seen every possible variation of triumph and disaster, well, the combat sports world manages to invent an entirely new way to shock us.
Oh man, you are not kidding. I mean, I want you, the listener, to just imagine spending 5 agonizing years and untold millions of dollars rebuilding your body, your brand, your entire psyche for one single defining moment of redemption.
Right.
Only to have all of it just evaporate in exactly 69 seconds.
It's just brutal.
It really is. So today, our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the absolute chaos, the heartbreak, and the sheer unpredictability of UFC 329.
We've got a massive stack of sources to go through today.
Yeah, we really do. Everything from post-fight medical analyses and press conference transcripts to social media warfare and these really intense psychological profiles.
Yeah, we're going to examine everything. From a catastrophic main event that left the entire arena in this stunned, uncomfortable silence.
I still can't believe how quiet it got in there.
Ooh, it was eerie. And we'll also get into the wild, almost desperate conspiracy theories that immediately flooded the internet right after.
Plus, we're breaking down a really dramatic blink-and-you-miss-it passing of the torch in the co-main event.
And we'll cap it all off by analyzing a hilarious but honestly incredibly revealing broadcast blunder that left the UFC CEO absolutely fuming.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's the kind of event that forces us to look way beyond just the win-loss records, you know.
Definitely. I mean, UFC 329 is going to be studied for years, and not just for the techniques displayed in the cage, but for what it teaches us about the absolute limits of human biomechanics.
And the fragile neurochemistry of elite athletes.
Right, and just the brutal corporate realities of fight promotion in general.
So let's start with the epicenter of the shockwave, the main event. The return of the Mac. Conor McGregor, historically the sport's biggest, most polarizing draw, stepping back into the octagon after a 5-year hiatus.
5 years? It's an eternity in this sport.
It really is. And the historical context here, it just can't be overstated. This was a rematch, 13 years in the making, against Max Holloway.
13 years.
Think about how much life happens in 13 years. You have McGregor, who defeated this very young, very raw Max Holloway all those years ago on some undercard in Boston.
Yeah, back when they're both basically kids.
Exactly. And McGregor is attempting to come back to reclaim his former glory. And on the other side, you have Holloway, who used that early career loss as fuel to build this absolutely legendary Hall of Fame resume.
Just standing there looking to avenge the ghost of his past.
The narrative weight pressing down on the canvas before the fight even started was staggering. Like the atmosphere inside the T-Mobile Arena when the opening notes of The Foggy Dew echoed through the speakers. It must have been thick enough to cut with a knife.
Oh, the anticipation was at an absolute fever pitch. And to really understand why the climax was so devastating, we have to look at the agonizing timeline that preceded it.
Right, the buildup.
Yeah, McGregor had spent half a decade resting, rehabbing, and attempting to drag his body back to this exact moment. I mean, we all remember the horrific left leg break against Dustin Poirier back in 2021.
How could anyone forget that? It was gruesome.
It was. And that wasn't just a career-threatening injury. It was the kind of structural failure that threatens your basic quality of life, like your ability to walk your kids to the park without pain.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just about fighting anymore at that level of trauma.
Exactly. So this walkout at UFC 329, it was heavily framed by the promotion and the media as the ultimate test of human will. The greatest comeback in sports history was on the line.
The entire combat sports world was watching, holding its collective breath, just waiting to see if the magic was still there.
And then the cage door closes, the referee signals to fight, the opening bell rings.
And McGregor actually comes out looking incredibly aggressive. He doesn't look tentative at all, which is wild considering the layout.
No, not at all. He immediately commands the center of the octagon.
Right. And then he throws a jumping roundhouse kick right after the opening exchanges. And in barely a minute, 69 seconds on the official clock, the fight is entirely over.
It was shocking. He misses the mark, lands awkwardly on his planting leg, and completely destroys his right knee.
Just destroys it. The UFC broadcast team officially called it a right knee internal injury on air. But shortly after, Dr. David J. Shao, the prominent medical voice who analyzes sports injuries in real time online.
Yeah, he's always quick with those breakdowns.
It is. He took to X to suggest that based on the mechanism of injury and the visual structural collapse we all saw, it looked like a catastrophic ACL tear combined with a possible patella subluxation.
Which is just devastating.
And the cruel, tragic irony here is just hard to process. Last time we watched his left lower leg snap in half. This time, after 5 years of obsessing over rehabbing the left leg, his right knee simply blows out.
The sheer cruelty of MMA biomechanics really needs a deep examination here. Because what happened isn't just bad luck. I mean, it is physics asserting dominance over biology.
Wow, physics asserting dominance over biology. Break that down for us.
Well, when you look at the mechanics of a jumping roundhouse kick, specifically a switch kick, which involves a midair transition of the hips, it is objectively one of the most explosive, high-risk, high-reward movements the human body can attempt.
You're generating a ton of force, right?
Immense force. You're generating immense rotational torque through your core and your hips. Your entire body weight is essentially weaponized, accelerated, and launched into the air.
But the launch isn't the problem, is it?
No, the critical phase of any aerial strike isn't the launch, it's the landing. What goes up must decelerate safely, and it has to do so within a fraction of a second, often while adjusting to a moving target.
Okay, I want to push back on that a bit, or at least dig into the environment.
Yeah.
Because we always hear about fighters practicing these kicks thousands of times in the gym without an issue.
Right, of course.
Does the actual physical environment of the octagon play a role in this? I have to imagine that the canvas they are fighting on impacts how that kinetic energy is absorbed when they land, right?
That is a phenomenal point. And it's a massive piece of the biomechanical puzzle here. The UFC octagon canvas is vastly different from the mats you find in a typical martial arts gym.
How so?
Well, a standard gym mat, like a zebra mat or a wrestling mat, is designed with a specific level of give. It is meant to dissipate kinetic energy to protect fighters during training. It absorbs the shock.
Right, it's squishy to a degree.
Exactly. The octagon, however, is a layer of canvas stretched very tightly over thin padding and plywood. It is notoriously stiff.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that rigid.
Yeah, it is built that way intentionally. It provides a high coefficient of friction, allowing fighters to plant their feet firmly and explode into strikes or takedowns without slipping. But that stiffness has a dark side.
The energy has nowhere to go.
Precisely. When McGregor landed awkwardly, missing Holloway entirely, the kinetic energy he expected to transfer into his opponent's body had absolutely nowhere to go.
Because he hit air.
Right. And because the stiff octagon canvas does not absorb shock like a gym mat, when his foot planted, the energy didn't dissipate into the floor. It traveled straight back up the kinetic chain.
Ouch.
Yeah. All of that downward and rotational force, the full momentum of a heavily muscled 37-year-old athlete, shot directly up his tibia and into a single, isolated planting knee.
And that leads to the specific injuries Dr. Chael mentioned. We hear these medical terms thrown around on broadcasts all the time. But let's actually define what is happening inside the leg.
Sure.
Chael mentioned a patella subluxation alongside the ACL tear. What exactly does that mean for the listener trying to visualize this structural failure?
Okay, let's break down the anatomy. The anterior cruciate ligament, or ACL, is the primary stabilizing band of tissue in the center of the knee. It prevents the shin bone from sliding out in front of the thigh bone.
Got it.
It is robust, but it has a definitive breaking point, particularly against rotational shear forces. Now, the patella is your kneecap. It sits in a very specific V-shaped groove at the end of your femur called the trochlear groove.
So it slides up and down in there.
Exactly. It acts like a pulley, giving your thigh muscles the leverage needed to extend your leg. A subluxation means that due to the violent twisting force upon landing, the kneecap partially dislocated.
Oh, man. Just hearing that makes me cringe.
Yeah, it violently popped out of that groove, shifted sideways, and then likely snapped back into place.
And that causes damage when it pops out.
Significant damage. When a patella subluxates at that velocity, it stretches or tears the medial patellofemoral ligament that holds it in place. And it often scrapes off pieces of articular cartilage from the back of the kneecap or the femur itself.
So it's like a double whammy of trauma to the joint.
Yes. So you have the primary stabilizer, the ACL, snapping, and the pulley system, the patella, derailing simultaneously. 1 millisecond of absolute structural failure completely undoes 5 years of meticulous, obsessive rehabilitation.
It is utterly devastating, and you could see that devastation immediately. McGregor didn't just look physically pained, he looked existentially broken in there.
He really did.
Later that night, he put out a statement on X that was incredibly dark and revealing. He wrote, "My head gasket is gone, destroyed. I am beyond dark here. I can only describe it as hell."
Those are heavy words.
You can feel the absolute despair in them, the psychological toll of realizing your body has betrayed you again. It makes me think of an analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Imagine you're a team of top-tier aerospace engineers. You spend 5 years and hundreds of millions of dollars building a massive, state-of-the-art rocket. You calibrate every thruster, you spend months checking the aerodynamics, you fuel it up with the most expensive propellants on Earth. The countdown finishes, the engines ignite with blinding power, and a single 50-cent titanium bolt snaps on the launch pad.
Yeah, and the whole thing goes up.
Exactly. The entire structure collapses into a fireball before it even clears the tower. So I have to ask you, looking at the science of human performance, is it possible that the human body simply has a hard expiration date for these explosive movements, no matter how much you rehab?
It's a tough question.
Like, can you literally age out of the ability to throw a jumping roundhouse kick?
The rocket analogy is incredibly apt because it perfectly illustrates how catastrophic failure is usually traced back to the smallest, most overstressed component.
Right.
And to answer your question, yes, there is an expiration date. But the terrifying part for athletes is that it's not a uniform date stamped on the bottom of their foot.
Right. Everyone's different.
Exactly. It's a highly individualized, invisible degradation process. As athletes age into their late 30s, the fundamental physiology of their connective tissue changes. The elasticity of their tendons and ligaments naturally decreases.
So they literally just become more brittle.
Essentially, yes. Furthermore, you have to consider the micro-traumas accumulated over decades of elite martial arts training. Think about the thousands of times McGregor's knee was torqued while defending wrestling takedowns in practice over the last 15 years.
Thousands upon thousands of reps.
Think about the thousands of times that specific joint absorbed the blunt force impact of checking leg kicks. All of that creates a cumulative wear and tear, a microscopic fraying of the fibers that no MRI can fully quantify until a macroscopic catastrophic event actually occurs.
Wow. So even if you rehab the left leg perfectly?
You can rehab a specific localized injury perfectly, sure, but you cannot reverse the systemic cellular aging of the connective tissue across your entire body.
That makes a lot of sense.
When McGregor asked his 37-year-old knee to perform a dynamic, explosive, load-bearing task that he used to execute effortlessly and flawlessly at 25, the structure simply could not handle the mathematical reality of the force applied to it.
The engine was willing, but the chassis gave out.
Exactly. The engine was still willing, but the chassis gave out.
That is a brutal reality to face.
Yeah.
And because the injury was so sudden, so visually bizarre, and frankly, so deeply anticlimactic for millions of viewers who tuned in for a war, human nature immediately rejected the simple explanation.
People always want a reason.
Right. We, as a viewing public, struggle to accept that a ligament just failed on live television through simple bad luck and biomechanical overload. We demand a grander narrative.
Oh, absolutely.
And this leads us directly into the wild speculation, the finger-pointing, and the conspiracy theories that started flying around social media before McGregor even made it back to the locker room for medical evaluation.
It was instantaneous. The internet detectives went to work immediately. They were analyzing every single frame of the broadcast, looking for clues.
Yep. Looking for a reason why this highly anticipated narrative fell apart.
What were the main theories they latched onto?
Well, the rumor started swirling aggressively that McGregor was actually carrying a severe injury before the fight even started, and that he hid it from the commission just to make the walk and collect the paycheck.
I saw those rumors going around.
Fans pointed to this very brief, seemingly innocuous clip on the broadcast, showing McGregor moments before he entered the octagon. He was taking off his warm-up shoes and his UFC fight kit pants, and he looked strangely labored.
Right, the shoe video.
Yeah. He stumbled a bit while pulling his leg out of the sweatpants. It looked like he couldn't put full weight on it. Then, Sean Strickland, the highly outspoken UFC middleweight champion, throws a massive can of gasoline on the fire with a controversial theory on X.
Strickland never holds back.
No, he doesn't. He didn't outright say this was the definitive proven cause, but he heavily implied it. Strickland claimed that prolonged steroid use makes fighters' bodies incredibly fragile over time.
The PED angle.
Yeah, he suggested that this chemical weakening caused the blowout. saying from his experience in the gym, guys who do steroids for too long end up weakening their connective tissues, leading to exactly these types of non-contact catastrophic injuries.
We really have to unpack this on two different levels, the psychological and the physiological.
Okay, let's do it.
First, let's look at the psychology of conspiracy theories within the combat sports community. Why do fans and even fellow elite fighters like Sean Strickland immediately look for external, nefarious reasons like hidden injuries or performance-enhancing drugs?
Why do you think?
It's because the alternative is deeply terrifying. If the biggest star in the history of the sport, a man with access to the absolute best medical care, the most expensive nutritionists, and the most carefully monitored training camps money can buy, can simply step wrong and end his career in 69 seconds,
then no one is safe.
Exactly. Then the sport is fundamentally unsafe and violently unpredictable for everyone. A conspiracy theory provides a comforting sense of order. It creates a narrative of cause and effect.
Right, it gives people a reason to point to.
It says, he got hurt because he cheated and took steroids, or he got hurt because he selfishly hid a pre-existing injury. It allows other fighters to rationalize the danger.
Like a defense mechanism.
Yes. It lets them believe as long as I play by the rules and listen to my doctors, I am safe from that fate. It is a psychological defense mechanism against the inherent chaos of the octagon.
That makes total sense from a psychological standpoint. But what about the actual science behind Strickland's claim? You hear this gym lore all the time, right? That PEDs make you prone to injury.
You do hear that a lot.
Is there any physiological truth to the idea that steroids cause blowouts like this? Let's bring some technical balance to this claim instead of just dismissing it as a defense mechanism.
Well, physiologically, Strickland is actually pointing toward a very real, well-documented medical phenomenon, even if his delivery is characteristically blunt.
Interesting. How so?
The issue with many anabolic steroids and performance-enhancing drugs is that they synthesize muscle tissue at an incredibly accelerated rate. They allow an athlete to pack on dense, fast-twitch muscle fiber very quickly.
But the joints don't keep up.
Exactly. The body does not strengthen ligaments and tendons at that same accelerated pace. Connective tissue relies on collagen synthesis, which is a much slower biological process.
I didn't realize that.
Furthermore, certain steroids can actually decrease the elasticity of tendons, making them stiffer. So what you end up with is a mechanical imbalance. You have a fighter who has built the muscular horsepower of a Ferrari engine, but they are still operating on the connective tissue chassis of a golf cart.
The Ferrari engine on a golf cart chassis. That is such a vivid visual.
The muscles are capable of generating more torque and force than the ligaments are designed to hold together. When you redline that engine under the lights, the muscles contract violently, and the comparatively weak chassis snaps under the pressure.
Which explains the catastrophic failure.
Right. Now, to be clear, there is zero public evidence that McGregor was on PEDs for this fight. He is tested by the regulatory bodies. But the mechanical theory Strickland is citing regarding tendon imbalance is grounded in sports medicine.
That visual is perfect. It explains exactly why a stronger muscle could actually be a liability if the rest of the joint isn't upgraded alongside it. But it should be noted, McGregor's camp completely vehemently denied all of these theories, both the hidden injury and the PED accusation.
As you would expect them to.
Yeah, McGregor insisted he had zero injuries going into the fight. He said he was absolutely fresh, throwing kicks, planting, and jumping all throughout his camp, and even in the locker room right before the walkout.
And John Kavanagh backed that up, right?
He did. His head coach, John Kavanagh, backed this up emphatically. He posted a lengthy explanation stating that they drilled that exact jump switch kick daily for months. They did it multiple times in the warm-up room that very night without a single twinge of pain or instability.
Which just highlights the unpredictability of it all.
Kavanagh was clearly devastated. He noted that the knee just went when he threw the very first kick under the bright lights of the arena.
And Kavanagh's explanation highlights the most critical, often misunderstood difference in combat sports, the delta between practice speed and game speed.
Totally different, isn't it?
Night and day. In the gym, even during the hardest sparring sessions of a fight camp, your brain is operating in a slightly more controlled, familiar environment. The mat is familiar, the energy is regulated, and your nervous system is relatively calm.
Right.
But under the lights of a sold-out T-Mobile arena with millions of people watching globally and a killer like Max Holloway standing across from you, your neurochemistry completely changes.
The adrenaline takes over.
Your adrenal glands flood your system with epinephrine and cortisol, your pupils dilate, your heart rate skyrockets, and most importantly, your central nervous system removes the natural inhibitory mechanisms that usually stop you from overexerting.
Oh, wow. So you literally push past your body's limits without realizing it.
You contract your muscles with a violence, a velocity, and a sheer desperation that is physiologically impossible to replicate in the practice room. A ligament might survive 1,000 repetitions of a kick at 95% intensity during camp, but it can fail on the very first repetition at 101% intensity on fight night.
That adrenaline dump literally overrides the body's safety switches. Now, Dana White, the UFC CEO, he also jumped into the fray during the post-fight press conference to defend McGregor against the pre-existing injury rumors.
Yeah, I heard about that.
But his defense was, it was really bizarre. He pointed out that the UFC 329 face-off video had generated 80 million views just on his personal social media accounts.
Wait, really?
Yes. His logic was that with 80 million eyes dissecting the footage of them facing off at the press conference, if there's something wrong with McGregor's knee, someone in the comment section would have noticed it.
That is...
I have to call this out. Does getting 80 million views on a promotional face-off really prove a fighter's knee is structurally sound? I mean, you can't see a micro tear in an ACL through an Instagram reel of two guys glaring at each other while wearing custom suits.
You are absolutely correct to dismantle that logic, because it is a textbook logical fallacy. Dana White is using a metric of digital engagement, 80 million social media views, to validate a complex physiological state.
It's absurd.
It is a promotional defense disguised as a medical one. As we just discussed in detail, structural weaknesses in ligaments, the microscopic fraying, the lack of elasticity are entirely invisible to the naked eye.
Right up until they snap.
They remain invisible right up until the exact moment of macroscopic failure. You could have 1 billion views on TikTok. It will not reveal the structural integrity of an anterior cruciate ligament.
So why would he even say that?
Yeah. White's defense here is purely corporate damage control. He is trying to protect the integrity of the promotion by assuring the public and the athletic commissions that the UFC does not knowingly send compromised fighters into a pay-per-view main event.
Got it. He has to maintain the illusion of oversight.
He has to maintain the illusion of absolute medical oversight. But from a sports medicine perspective, social media metrics are entirely irrelevant to joint stability.
Before we dive deeper, shout out to our sponsors. First up, Elite Sports, leaders in premium fightwear for BJJ and MMA. Whether you're rolling or striking, they've got gear built to move with you. Check them out at elitesports.com. And if you're a school owner looking to optimize your dojo's performance, you need to check out Lotus by Open Black Belt. It's the ultimate management software for tracking ranks, attendance, and billing. They are currently offering a free trial to our listeners. Streamline your business so you can spend more time on the mats. Visit openblackbelt.com to start your trial today. You can find links for both in the show notes. And if you've got a story, news tip, or question, send it to us at Budocast.com.
So with the biggest star in the sport down on the canvas, surrounded by doctors, and the conspiracy theories swirling around the internet like a hurricane, we really get an unfiltered look at the true culture and the raw nerve of the MMA ecosystem.
It got pretty ugly pretty fast.
The reaction from the rest of the fight world to the fall of its biggest icon was a fascinating, often disturbing study in contrasts.
It really was a split screen of human emotion. On one side of the aisle, you had sheer, unadulterated schadenfreude, people actively and publicly rejoicing in his physical misery.
Yeah, the pile-on was intense.
Islam Makhachev, the pound-for-pound great, tweeted, "Conor beat Conor," basically laughing off the idea that McGregor was even a legitimate threat anymore. Jake Paul, who has built his own brand on trolling the MMA establishment, just posted rows and rows of laughing emojis within seconds of the injury.
Unsurprising from Paul, but still.
Right. And Kevin Lee, a former lightweight contender, pointed out the brutal reality we just discussed regarding game speed versus practice speed, but he did it to mock McGregor, laughing at the fact that he blew out his knee 2 seconds into a real fight.
And that animosity, that eagerness to dance on his grave, it does not exist in a vacuum. We have to look at the historical context of how McGregor built his empire.
Oh, for sure. He made a lot of enemies.
For a decade, Conor McGregor built his brand not just on the devastating power of his left hand, but on the weaponization of his tongue. He didn't just talk traditional sports trash. He crossed deeply personal lines.
Yeah, he went after families, religions, nations.
He insulted fighters' families. He mocked their religions, their national heritage, and their teammates. He utilized psychological warfare to break opponents mentally before they even stepped onto the canvas.
And it made him insanely wealthy.
It was incredibly lucrative. But the hidden cost of that strategy is that you cultivate deep, genuine, lasting enemies. When you build your throne on the public humiliation of your peers, there will always be a long line of people eagerly waiting with pitchforks when that throne eventually collapses.
But then on the flip side of that very same coin, you saw genuine, heartfelt sympathy from other peers. Fighters like Bo Nickal, Rafael dos Anjos, and Jamahal Hill.
Guys who know what it takes to get in there.
Exactly. Guys who are incredibly tough and no strangers to the harsh realities of the sport. They expressed real sadness. Even guys who have historical bad blood with McGregor recognize the tragedy of the moment. Kenny Florian put it perfectly, noting that MMA remains the most unforgiving sport in the world.
It truly is.
And I think the reason for that sympathy, the reason it cuts through the hatred, lies in the gritty reality of what actually happened inside that cage. Because the sources reveal something incredible about the immediate aftermath of the snap.
What was that?
Max Holloway revealed in his post-fight interview that even after the knee blew out, as McGregor was literally unable to stand, collapsing onto his back, a crazed McGregor was screaming, "Fight! Fight!" at him.
Wow.
He was demanding Holloway engage him on the ground until the referee, Mike Beltran, mercifully stepped in to physically wave the fight off.
What's fascinating here is that detail is absolutely chilling.
Yeah.
And it speaks directly to the duality of the fighter we are discussing.
Yeah.
You have the loud, brash businessman who talks trash, wears silk suits, and makes enemies. But underneath all of that armor is a primal, almost irrational combatant.
Just pure instinct.
The visceral horror of feeling an ACL tear, of knowing your career might be over in 5 seconds, transcends all the promotional trash talk. It evokes a deep empathy from other fighters because every single person who steps into that octagon knows intimately the exact physical risk they are taking to feed their families.
You know it could be them.
They know that what happened to McGregor's knee could happen to their knee on any given Saturday. They recognize the terror of the body failing while the mind is still willing to go to war.
Think about that vivid image for a second. I mean, McGregor is flat on the canvas. His knee is structurally destroyed. His 5-year comeback is ruined in a minute. The crowd is silent. And he's screaming, "Fight! Fight!"
It's cinematic, really.
I can't help but compare that to an ancient gladiator in the Colosseum. He's been struck down. He's bleeding out in the sand. The battle is mathematically and physically lost. But his ego and his pride refuse to let him drop his sword. He is demanding the violence continue, even when his body has completely betrayed him.
Right.
Let me ask you, does that final moment of sheer delusion and grit actually validate McGregor's fighting spirit more than if he had just gone out there, fought cautiously for 25 minutes, and lost a generic 5-round decision?
That's a great question.
Does it prove that despite all the hundreds of millions of dollars, the yachts, and the Hollywood movies, he's still a real fighter at his core?
This raises a profound psychological question about athlete identity. When an athlete accumulates the kind of generational wealth McGregor has, the public and their peers often rightfully question their hunger.
The silk pajamas quote, right?
Exactly. Marvin Hagler gave us the famous boxing adage, "It's tough to get out of bed to do road work at 5 a.m. when you've been sleeping in silk pajamas." People assumed McGregor was just showing up for the spectacle.
But the footage shows something else.
But what we saw in those frantic, agonizing seconds on the canvas was the pure survival instinct overriding physical reality. His brain absolutely refused to accept the catastrophic data his knee was sending it.
Just pure denial.
While from a medical perspective, we might view it as sheer delusion, from a cultural perspective within martial arts, it undeniably validates his fighting spirit. It strips away the businessman persona, it strips away the whiskey brands and the tailored suits, and it leaves just the naked combatant who refuses to yield.
It's kind of poetic, in a dark way.
In a strange, twisted way, failing so spectacularly, yet demanding to fight through the structural collapse of his own body, might secure his legacy of toughness among his peers more firmly than a cautious, tactical performance ever could. It proved the fire wasn't completely extinguished.
It is a powerful, defining image that will loop in highlight reels forever. But while McGregor's star arguably flickered out in the main event, the co-main event saw another polarizing European star completely seize the spotlight.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he shifted the entire balance of power in the lightweight division. We have to pivot and talk about the ascension of the Baddy. Paddy Pimblett took on Benoit Saint-Denis, often referred to by fans and media as BSD. And Paddy shocked a lot of analysts by choking him out in just 52 seconds.
It was a breathtaking masterclass in opportunistic, high-level grappling executed under immense pressure.
Exactly. Let's set the stage for you. BSD is known as an absolute buzzsaw. He came out incredibly aggressively right at the bell, looking to close the distance and secure a takedown to back Paddy against the fence, which is his signature game plan.
That's his bread and butter.
But Paddy was waiting for it. He instantly jumped on a guillotine choke as BSD shot in, transitioned beautifully as they hit the mat, and locked in a vicious Darce choke from a highly dominant top position.
The transition was seamless.
And it wasn't just a clinical submission, it was a violent statement. Pimblett actually explicitly told referee Mark Goddard during the choke that BSD was out cold and face down eating canvas.
He knew he had him.
He knew exactly what he had done before the ref even realized BSD was unconscious. This decisive, terrifying win completely erases the doubts lingering from his previous loss to Justin Gaethje at UFC 324, and it puts Paddy right back into the very top of the lightweight title conversation.
We really need to break down the tactical brilliance of what Pimblett accomplished there, because a 52-second submission against a grappler of BSD's caliber is incredibly rare.
So what did he do so well?
Let's look at the mechanics. When Benoit Saint-Denis shot for that early takedown, he brought tremendous forward momentum. A lesser fighter would try to sprawl or push that force away.
Try to stop the train?
Right, but Pimblett didn't try to stop the force. He redirected it. By jumping the guillotine, he forced BSD to immediately address the threat to his neck, which opened up the transition as they scrambled. Now, the Darce choke, named after grappler Joe Darce, is a highly complex submission. It is not just about squeezing.
Right. People often think chokes are just like a python wrapping around you and squeezing the breath out of you. But that's not mechanically accurate, is it? Can you explain exactly how the Darce puts someone to sleep? Let's give the listeners a real mechanical breakdown.
Forget the python analogy entirely. Think of the Darce choke like a mechanical vice, or even better, a blood pressure cuff.
Okay, a blood pressure cuff. I'm listening.
To execute it, Paddy has to thread his arm under BSD's armpit, across his chest, and behind his neck, locking his hands together, usually with a figure-4 grip.
So his arms are locked up tight.
Now, he isn't crushing the windpipe to stop BSD from breathing. He is targeting the carotid arteries on the sides of the neck, which supply blood to the brain.
Which is way faster than choking off air.
Much faster. Here's the genius of the Darce. You use the opponent's own trapped shoulder as one side of the vise and your forearm as the other side. When Paddy drops his weight and locks it in, the harder BSD struggles and breathes, the tighter his own shoulder presses into his own carotid artery.
Wow, so fighting it makes it worse.
It acts exactly like a blood pressure cuff inflating. Once those arteries are compressed, the brain is deprived of oxygenated blood and the opponent loses consciousness in a matter of seconds, which is why BSD went limp so quickly.
That blood pressure cuff visual makes it so clear why it's so inescapable once locked. Now, one of our sources for this deep dive, Consensus Score, had a really interesting, slightly critical take on this sequence.
What did they say?
They wrote that BSD walked right into a sub like a white belt. I have to push back hard on that characterization. I want your analytical take. When an elite-ranked fighter like BSD gets caught that quickly and seemingly that easily, is it really a sign of him panicking under the bright lights and making a rookie white belt mistake?
I wouldn't call it that.
Or is it purely a testament to Paddy's elite grappling IQ, where he set a trap that even a black belt couldn't see coming until the jaws snapped shut?
It is a disservice to both fighters to call it a white belt mistake. It is rarely just one or the other. It is always a violent collision of both fighters' processing speeds.
Right, because they're reacting in fractions of a second.
Was BSD acting like a beginner? No. He was executing a high-pressure wrestling game plan that has won him numerous fights. However, the pressure cooker of a UFC co-main event, combined with the adrenaline dump we discussed earlier, can cause even elite athletes to rush their sequences.
So he just rushed it.
BSD rushed the entry on the takedown. He didn't set it up with strikes. He just shot in naked, likely trying to overwhelm Pimblett early and establish dominance. But Pimblett's grappling IQ is so refined that his central nervous system reacts automatically to certain postural triggers.
It's just muscle memory for Paddy.
Exactly. When BSD shot without a setup, he left his neck exposed for a fraction of a second. Pimblett didn't have to think. His muscle memory took over. It wasn't that BSD forgot how to grapple. It's that Pimblett's processing speed in those chaotic transitional scrambles is simply world class.
He just processed the mistake faster.
He set a trap. BSD's own aggression forced him blindly into it, and Pimblett slammed the mechanical vise shut before BSD's brain even registered that he was in danger.
So Paddy's physical performance was absolutely flawless. He executed perfectly. But the psychological backdrop of this fight and the subsequent drama it caused in the media reveals the immense, almost crushing mental pressure these fighters operate under when the cameras aren't rolling.
People underestimate that part.
The physical fight in the cage is only half the battle.
Exactly. The war in the mind leading up to the fight is often much more brutal and far less visible to the fans.
We saw this clearly when Pimblett went on the About Last Fight podcast and admitted something truly shocking for a fighter in his prime.
Yeah, this was eye-opening.
He said that 4 or 5 weeks out from UFC 329, deep in his training camp, he genuinely debated retiring from the sport.
Retiring? Wow.
Yeah, he looked at the landscape of the division and felt that if he couldn't beat a guy like BSD, he would never be world champion. And if he couldn't be world champion, his entire purpose for taking brain damage was defeated. He asked himself, what is the point of suffering through this camp if the ceiling is just being a gatekeeper?
That level of existential doubt is incredibly common in combat sports, but it is rarely vocalized so honestly while the fighter is still active and relevant.
Right. Normally they wait until they retire to talk about that stuff.
Usually, fighters project an aura of absolute invincibility. Admitting you wanted to quit a month before the fight is a rare glimpse behind the psychological curtain.
Right. But then his mindset shifted dramatically. And it wasn't because he had a great sparring session or a pep talk from his coach. It was because he watched Justin Gaethje pull off a massive, violent upset against Ilia Topuria to win the undisputed lightweight title at UFC Freedom 250.
That fight changed everything.
Keep in mind, Gaethje is the only man to definitively beat Paddy in the UFC. Seeing Gaethje conquer the division and lift that belt lit an absolute fire under Pimblett. He said he felt totally invincible for the last 2 weeks of his camp.
It's amazing how that works.
Then, after he goes out and actually kills it in 52 seconds, the post-fight ego kicks into overdrive. Paddy gets on the microphone, declares Conor McGregor finished, and aggressively crowns himself the new, undisputed face of the organization.
What is truly fascinating here is the cascading effect of external events on a fighter's internal neurochemistry. Pimblett was in a depressive, doubtful state, questioning his life choices. Then, an external event occurs. Gaethje winning.
Why did that matter so much to Paddy?
Why did that specific event matter so much? It's a concept in sports psychology called vicarious self-efficacy.
Vicarious self-efficacy.
Yes, when an athlete sees someone they consider a peer, or in Paddy's case, the man who beat him, achieve the ultimate goal, it literally rewires their own belief system. Human beings use comparative logic to build confidence.
Ah, I see.
Pimblett's brain told him, Gaethje beat me, but Gaethje just beat the terrifying Topuria to become champion. Therefore, by the transitive property of MMA, if I can just beat the guys in front of me, I am actually on the level of the world champion.
That's wild. It's like a math equation for confidence.
That single external observation altered his dopamine levels, erased his cortisol-driven doubt, and gave him the psychological armor, the placebo effect of confidence he needed to walk into the cage feeling invincible. It proves how incredibly fragile, yet highly malleable elite athletic confidence really is.
I want you, the listener, to try and imagine that emotional whiplash for a second. Imagine having to perform at the absolute highest, most dangerous level at your job. Maybe you have a massive presentation to the board of directors that dictates your entire financial future.
And if you fail, you're physically beaten up.
Exactly. While secretly, just 4 weeks prior, you were sitting on your couch staring at the wall, wondering if you should just quit your career entirely. That is the mental tightrope these athletes walk every single camp.
It's an insane way to live.
But let's look at the fallout of Paddy's newfound explosive confidence. Heavyweight fighter Josh Hookett took serious issue with it. He slammed Pimblett on X, calling him completely two-faced.
Hookett did not hold back.
Hookett pointed out that Paddy was incredibly respectful, almost deferential to McGregor all week during the media buildup, taking a back seat to the Irish star. But the second McGregor lost and showed weakness, Paddy kicked him while he was down, calling him finished and trying to steal his spotlight.
The opportunism was pretty glaring.
Hookett actually used Paddy's behavior as justification for his own polarizing, relentless trash talk in the heavyweight division. Basically saying, see, everyone in this sport is fake anyway, so why should I play nice? So what does this all mean for locker room dynamics?
Right.
Let me challenge you on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Is Josh Hookett right? Is the concept of martial arts respect dead? Is combat sports just a theater of convenience where respect is purely conditional based on who holds the power?
That is a profound question about the underlying ethics and the social contract of fight promotion. Hokit is pointing out the stark difference between promotional respect and genuine character.
Promotional respect, like playing the game.
In the modern fight game, respect is often just a currency. It is used strategically to buy favor with fans or, more importantly, to avoid waking up a sleeping giant before a fight.
Which makes sense with McGregor.
Exactly. Pimlet likely respected McGregor's massive drawing power and didn't want to become a target of McGregor's infamous psychological warfare during fight week, which could have derailed his own focus.
But once McGregor was down.
The moment McGregor showed physical weakness, the moment he fell from the top of the alpha hierarchy, Pimlet saw a power vacuum and immediately moved to fill it, claiming he was the new face of the UFC.
Hokit is arguing a very Machiavellian point.
Which is, if respect evaporates the very moment it is no longer strategically useful, then it was never genuine respect to begin with. It was just survival strategy. And if it's all just strategy and theater, Hokit feels entirely justified in playing the villain role 24/7.
So it's all just Game of Thrones, basically.
It suggests that the UFC locker room is less a traditional brotherhood of honorable martial artists and much more a Machiavellian political arena where everyone is just smiling at the king, waiting for him to stumble so they can violently steal the crown.
A Machiavellian political arena. That perfectly frames our final topic, because that exact same ruthless corporate energy was playing out behind the scenes. We transition from the fragile egos of the fighters inside the octagon to the sheer, unadulterated chaos and the fragile corporate ego of Dana White regarding the UFC production team.
Oh, this was something else.
Because while all this high-stakes human drama is playing out under the lights, somebody sitting in the dark broadcast truck is having a very, very bad day at the office.
It provided a much-needed moment of levity for the fans watching at home, though Dana White certainly didn't see the humor in it.
Oh, he was absolutely furious. It was incredible television. Here's what happened. The UFC broadcast wanted to show off Zuffa Boxing's shiny new marquee signing, the undefeated four-division boxing champion Shakur Stevenson.
Right, a massive star.
He was sitting in the crowd looking like a star. They wanted to hype him up to the massive MMA audience. But the production team accidentally put up a lower third graphic identifying him as NBA player Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
An incredible, almost incomprehensible, unforced error on a global broadcast.
And Dana White went on an absolute tear at the post-fight press conference. He was visibly red in the face, practically vibrating with anger. He contrasted this ridiculous mistake with the team's incredible feat just a month prior.
The White House event.
Right. He pointed out that this exact same production team had literally built an arena on the south lawn of the White House for UFC Freedom 250. They navigated the Secret Service, they dealt with federal logistics, and they broadcasted a flawless event globally from the lawn of the President of the United States.
Which is a logistical nightmare.
Yet a month later, they possess an absolute inability to handle basic celebrity identification graphics in a standard Las Vegas arena. White was complaining loudly about paying Stevenson a schload of money to bring him over, only to have him identified as a basketball player on international television.
This blunder perfectly encapsulates the wild, entirely unpredictable nature of live sports entertainment.
How does that even happen?
You have this extreme juxtaposition of high-level logistical competence building a secure broadcast infrastructure at the White House with a comedic entry-level error. But we have to understand the mechanics of a live broadcast to see how this happens.
Okay, take us inside the truck.
The technical director in the truck is managing dozens of live camera feeds, multiple audio channels, and complex graphics packages simultaneously. They are shouting countdowns in everyone's earpieces.
It's pure chaos.
One wrong click by an overworked, highly stressed graphics operator who queued up the wrong file, and suddenly a world champion boxer is an NBA forward.
Thankfully, the athletes involved had a great sense of humor about the whole thing. Shakur Stevenson tweeted a bunch of laughing emojis, taking it in stride, and Jalen Williams joked on Instagram, posting a side-by-side picture and saying, close enough, while happily accepting lifetime free ringside tickets from the UFC as a corporate apology.
At least they were cool about it.
Yeah, I have to laugh at the absurdity of the situation. But from a strict business perspective, let me push you on this. Is this just a harmless, funny moment for the internet that will be forgotten by tomorrow's news cycle? Or does it legitimately damage Dana White's massive efforts to cross-promote Zuffa boxing to a global MMA audience?
It's a bigger deal than people think.
He spent a fortune to legitimize Shakur to MMA fans, and his own team just called him Jalen Williams. Does this hurt the bottom line?
While it's hilarious for the fans on social media, from a corporate brand equity standpoint, it is a legitimate, costly misstep. This is a failure of a concept called brand transfer.
Brand transfer? What's that?
In sports marketing, cross-promotion relies heavily on taking the established prestige of one entity, Shakur Stevenson, an elite boxing champion, and transferring that aura of greatness to the MMA audience. Dana White is trying to build an entirely new revenue vertical with Zuffa boxing.
He needs MMA fans to care about boxing.
Exactly. To succeed financially, he needs the MMA audience to view these boxers with the exact same reverence and respect they hold for UFC champions. When your own broadcast misidentifies your marquee signing, it subtly, subconsciously signals to the audience at home that this person isn't actually that important.
Like, if the UFC doesn't know who he is, why should I?
Exactly. If the production team doesn't even know who he is, why should the fans spending $80 on a pay-per-view care? The brand transfer fails instantaneously. It breaks the illusion of prestige.
Will this ruin Zuffa boxing, though?
Will this single graphic error sink Zuffa boxing entirely? No. But in the ruthless business of fight promotion, perception is reality. White's fury isn't just about a typo. It's about a failure to protect the massive financial investment he made in Stevenson's image.
He paid for a red carpet and got a blooper reel.
He was paying for a premium red carpet introduction to a new fan base, and he received a blooper reel moment instead.
It just goes to show that in this sport, the chaos isn't contained by the chain link fence of the octagon. It spills out into the locker rooms, it infects social media, and it runs right up into the broadcast truck. We've covered incredible ground today in this deep dive, from the microscopic tearing of ligaments to the macroscopic business of sports promotion.
We really ran the gamut today.
I want you to think about the razor-thin margins we just discussed. A 5-year, multi-million-dollar comeback destroyed by one awkward landing on a stiff canvas. A career almost abandoned in training camp out of crippling self-doubt, saved purely by watching someone else's upset on television. A 52-second choke that shifts the entire balance of power and financial future of the UFC lightweight division.
It all happens so fast.
In this sport, legacies aren't just built over decades of hard work. They are created, and they are irrevocably destroyed in mere seconds. The next time you watch a fight, ask yourself, how close is the person winning to losing absolutely everything? That's it for this episode of Budocast. Thanks for joining us as we break down the latest in martial arts. We'll be back soon with more news, stories, and insights. Until then, train hard, stay humble.